Florida, but let me get back to the main picture. What's the main picture? You do not even want to get in this situation.
Right. I
This is
know.
not, we do not want to get into an adversarial situation with attorneys. That is not.
No, this was a guy that just ripped me off for 10,
Yeah,
15.
but I'm also trying to share with you, when is it likely that somebody's going to try to do that? It's usually an attorney that's out of state,
Right.
that'll never see you again. That's usually, this is not an adversarial situation. So I just
No.
hang tight here. I want to
Yeah.
make this point. I want to make this point because I see personal injury seminars and they talk about file a UCC and do this and do this. Guess
No.
what? Well, guess what? That's because you don't have a relationship. That's because you didn't sell them. It's because you have no authority. It's because they know you're going to give them a big bill with crap documentation. So this is not about, it's the total opposite. It's not about giving bad bills with or bad documentation that gives less than a 3-to-1 injury award. And that's what most chiropractors are doing. And so that's why overwhelmingly these attorneys are hesitant to pay your bills and not sign liens and all that stuff. How it should be handled is going back to education. First, educating yourself, like when you're a client of mine. In other words, you know how to document properly, you know the categories, you know how all this comes together and works with documentation, and then knowing how to present it to the attorney. That's what you want to do. You
Okay.
want to win the attorney, you want to win the attorney over. And okay, so we typically start, hold tight, please hold tight.
Okay.
So we want to start the relationship with our list and our marketing and all that stuff. But if they come in and in other words, they've come in and you've already, the relationship has started, but it started differently. It started through the patient. You still want to see it as an opportunity. So even if they don't sign the lien, you don't want to just get all frustrated and drop the hammer. You don't want to do that. You want to still try to meet with them and educate them on the sales process and the value you're going to creating. In other words, what's the absolute big concept that you have to address head on is you've got to make sure that through what I call the sales presentation, our sales presentation, they're afraid of getting your big fat bill with a nothing burger. And that's what they're used to getting with chiropractors, documentation, nothing burgers with big bills. And you need to understand that's why you're getting treated the way you're getting treated. That's why they don't want to sign a lien. That's why they don't want to pay your bill. That's the reason. So you got to go you want to go the other way. And even if they had these experiences that already has started the relationship down not a good road, you need to understand that that's where they're at subconsciously. And then you just want to start in. And that's why I said, you want to have a generic statement of the 3 phases healing. What's the therapeutic goal? What's the typical therapies you do? What's the frequency and the cost for each of those categories? And then that doesn't carry a lot of weight with the attorney. It makes sense, but it doesn't carry it clinically. But what carries weight with the attorney is you go, now when the patient does get this is how it's going to hurt your case. And then, of course, that's when you go into there's the top 5 financial drivers. And you're not going to have MMI, you're not going to have an impairment, you're not going to have loss of enjoyment of lifetime activities, duties under duress or prognosis. So out of these 4 injury awards, you're only going to have medicals and you're going to have real bad documentation for pain and suffering. And that's why you're getting less than a 3-to-1 injury award ratio. That's why you're getting bad documentation. That's not what happens here. So we're going to make sure we take them through all 3 phases. We're going to document it. We're going to fulfill all 5 financial drivers. We're going to have the documentation you're going to need to support your medical injury award, your impairment injury award, the pain and suffering injury award, and the prognosis and need for a future care injury award. That is the concept you need to get across. And when you get that across, that's called educational sales. And they know what they're dealing with now. So they understand of what you're doing with the care, the cost, the frequency, and then they know the value of how this translates into an injury award and whether they get hurt or not. That is what is most important. And that's why I say I've never had an attorney not willing to sign a lien that I gave that presentation to that now was not willing to sign a lien.